I was that dad. I was that dad that messed up with money so badly that I put my family in jeopardy. I was that dad. I grew up middle class, and when I got out of college, my wife Sharon and I, we were broke. We started off with nothing, like most people start off. How many of y'all started off with nothing? You remember, we ain't got money, honey, but we got love. Yeah, that's how we started off. And I started buying and selling real estate, and I got rich. At least by a kid from Antioch, Tennessee standards. I ended up with about $4 million worth of real estate. And I was buying it, selling it, making money. I thought everything was grand. The bank got sold to another bank. They called our notes. We spent the next 2.5 years of our life losing everything we owned. We were sued and foreclosed on. With a toddler and a brand new baby, we hit bottom completely. I remember being so scared I couldn't breathe. I remember standing in the shower with it so hot in my face that it was almost scalding. And I just stood there and cried. I didn't know what to do. Again, my marriage is hanging on by a thread. I got a little baby. I've got a wife. And I had just met God in the process. Always reminds me that I met God on the way up when I was getting wealthy, and I got to know Him on the way down. And so we started studying God's ways of handling money. We got the scriptures out and started looking at what the Bible has to say. And I will tell you this, biblical things seldom work quickly, but they always work. God's kind of in the crock pot business more than He's in the microwave business. And so we started studying and reading about budgets and the things that God has to say about living on a plan. We started studying and learning about saving and the house of the wise or stores of choice food and oil. And there's 2,500 scriptures that deal with money and possessions. And we started learning those principles and applying them to our lives, and that young, broke and broken family got to start over. And gradually, painfully gradually, ever so gradually, we crawled out. Now that was 25 years ago, 26 years ago. And it baffles my mind now when I look back that I can remember those emotions. I can remember how afraid I was, and I can remember driving a stake in the ground and saying, this is it. It changes here. It changes here. This is the last Ramsey in this branch of the family tree that's going to do this. That's it. I've had it. I'm not living like this anymore. Because I was that dad. I was the guy that filed bankruptcy. I was the guy that filed bankruptcy on September 23rd, 1988.
And I was born that year. So I was born in April, and Mom and Dad filed in September. And some people tell me that I was born at the worst possible time, the crash. But I see it differently, because I think I was born at the best time, because it was their fresh start. You see, I literally had a front row seat of watching Dave and Sharon Ramsey figure out how money works. And because of that, I believe my life and my legacy has forever been changed. And that's not because I'm Dave Ramsey's daughter, but that's because I had a mom and a dad who were intentional, showing us God's ways of handling money. And because of that, I think one of my favorite calls on Dad's radio show is where people call in to do their debt-free screams. If you've heard this, people will call in and they'll share their journey about how they became completely debt-free. And at the end of the call, with millions of people listening on the airwaves, they get to scream out at the top of their lungs that they are debt-free. And Dad actually does the radio show live in our office in Nashville. So when you walk into our office lobby, his studio's off to the right with a big glass wall so you can watch him do the show. Across from that's a little cafe called Martha's Place, and there's cookies and cakes and cappuccino and coffee being made. And so families will drive or fly from all over America to come to Financial Peace Plaza, not only to watch the show, but to do their debt-free screams live in our lobby. And that's one of the perks about working at the office, is because I can walk through that lobby between 1 and 4 on any given afternoon, and I get to meet these people. I get to see these people. You'll meet the 55-year-old couple sitting at the high top table in the corner and they just paid off their mortgage. You'll meet the single mom who drove up from Atlanta with her teenage son and she's there to do her debt-free scream. But the ones that always get me are the young families that come in. The doors to our office will open up and a little 5-year-old boy will come jolting in because he's been in the car for 8 hours and he's doing laps. And then a dad will walk in behind him with a little 3 or 4-year-old little girl attached to his leg. And her little blonde curls are stuck to her face because she's been sleeping and she's in little footy pajamas. And then a very, very, very tired mom walks in behind them and she has a 1-year-old on her hip. And you watch this little family as they come in and the mom and dad, they put on the radio headsets with the microphone and they get on the call with dad and they'll start saying, Dave, we didn't take family vacation this summer. We put all that money to finally pay off our cars. The dad will say, I took an extra job and worked for a year on Saturdays and at nights to finally pay off our student loans. And then dad gets to say those magical words. He'll say, okay, guys, count it down. Let's hear your big debt-free scream. And as I'm in the lobby, I can watch this family as these parents gather up their kids and the kids kind of start jumping up and down and they're excited because they know they have a job to do. And they've been practicing for 8 hours for this moment. And as those parents, I just watch them and these parents, I think of them, I'm like, you've literally moved mountains to change your kids' lives. And those parents get to bend down for the kids to reach the microphone and that dad, he'll say, okay, ready? 3, 2, 1. And in unison, this whole family with these little chipmunk voices in the background scream out together, we're debt-free. And every time I hear those calls, it just makes me cry because I think, I was that little girl. And I just want to take her little face with those curls and just say, do you have any idea what your parents have just done for you? Do you have any idea the legacy that's being left for you? Because my parents, they could have gone right back in to their old ways and their old habits, but they didn't. They drew a line in the sand and they said, enough is enough. And because of that, my future is different. And that is why I'm so excited for parents out there to hear this message and to get their kids on board so their kids can know from the beginning what it looks like to handle money wisely so they don't have to make the mistakes maybe their parents have made. And again, that's why we're so excited about this. But I think starting from the beginning, mom and dad, they've taught me so much about money. But I think one of the very, very first principles that's crucial and the foundation to all of this is the principle of work. And work in the Ramsey house, I think we can say, was a pretty big deal as kids.
Well, there's no question about that. Ramseys believe in work. As a matter of fact, our family crest, we're Scottish, has 2 Latin words above it, and I can't say Latin, so I have no idea. Hillbilly Latin you don't want to hear anyway. But the 2 words mean pray and work. It's about all we know how to do. And so when in doubt, we pray and we work. That's Ramsey's. And I've done that even before I knew God. It was just kind of ingrained into my family culture. So you're right. The importance of work is a big deal. And work is part of the equation. Yes, you've got God's blessings and the things that God sends your way, but there's this formula somehow that we won't understand completely till we get to heaven, where there's a part we play. We have to work, and then He has blessings. You can't do one without the other. They don't happen. You can't work without God's blessings and cause it to win. You can't take God's blessings without work and cause it to win. There's some kind of a connectivity there that unleashes things in the spiritual realm. It's like the story Earl Nightingale, the great motivator, used to tell. He said there was a preacher walking along a country road and he came up over the rise, and as he did, he saw this beautiful farm. I mean, it was perfect. The rows were just in line, not a weed in a single row. And the fence rows were all clean. And as he kept walking along, he got closer and closer to the house. The little house looked like something in a Norman Rockwell painting. I mean, picket fence, the garden is perfect. Everything is maintained. It doesn't need paint. And it is obvious that this place is more than well cared for. There's great pride. And as the preacher continues to walk along, he looks up, and coming down the row, working one of the rows, is the old farmer. And he comes out to the edge in his overalls, and he's covered in dirt, of course, and calloused hands. And the preacher says, "Farmer, good to meet you." He says, "I'm just looking at this." He says, "God has blessed you with a wonderful farm." The old farmer thought for a moment, and he said, "Yes, sir, he has. And every morning I get on my knees and I tell him thank you. But preacher, you should have seen this place when God had it all to himself." Work plays a part in our spiritual walk. There's some connectivity with us and God that is a big deal. Work is not a bad thing. And it's not a bad thing for your kids. Teaching your kids to work is not child abuse. So teach them to work. You've got to teach them the importance of work. And age appropriately. We're not sending a 4-year-old to the salt mines, okay? Calm down. We want to have some grace. These are children. But our goal as adults raising these kids, our parenting skills, require us to teach them to bathe and brush their teeth and do their studies. And so they need to learn some of these other basic life skills. And that includes work. Work is a good thing. My grandmother used to say there's a great place to go when you're broke. To work. It's a good thing to do. It's not a bad thing. It's a character quality. The sense of confidence, the sense of dignity goes with a child at any age when you've done age-appropriate work ethic type lessons and they've ingested them into their little character. It's a big deal. Thomas Edison said, "Opportunity is missed by most people because it's dressed in overalls and it looks like work."
And teaching your kids to work early will instill a habit that they'll take with them later in life. Proverbs says, "Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it." So train up your children in a household where work is important. And it's also important for your kids to understand the work-money connection. That money comes from work. Money doesn't come just from mom and dad's back pocket. And so growing up in the Ramsey house, we were never given an allowance as kids. We were always on commission. So you work, you get paid. You don't work, you don't get paid. And mom and dad were big on this. I mean, they hated the word allowance because it almost sounds like you're not able to do something, you're deficit, so we have to help you out. Versus saying, no, you have the dignity to complete a task, some chores you can do, and we will pay you on them. So seeing that connection that when you work, you get paid, and when you don't work, you don't get paid.
See, it's great for a kid to have that connection. You've got to have that connection between work. Work is what causes money. I meet 54-year-olds that don't know this. Work is what causes money. And somewhere along the line, no one got that through to them. Now, again, we're age appropriate. We're not trying to send a 4-year-old to the salt mines. Keep that in mind. There's a lot of grace and mercy. These are children. But when they leave your home at 17 or 18 years old, they need to know how to work. Work's actually an offering that we make to the Lord. He gives us the ability to work. He gives us our hands. Have you ever looked at your hand and thought about how amazing it is? He gives us our mind. Have you ever thought about how amazing that is? We're supposed to use these things as service to the Lord, as service to the community, as a part of our witness. It is who we are. Our work is really, really important as a part of our spiritual walk, our psychological development, and working with your kids and showing them these things is a big deal. Believers, we work for God's glory. How we do our work reflects on who He is and who we think He is. It's our Christian witness. It's a big deal. I mean, we've all heard Colossians 3:23. For whatever you do it heartily as unto the Lord and not unto men. Do your work with gusto. Do your work with precision. I always tell our team when I'm working with them around our office, if you're going to put a fish on the back of it, drive it right. You know, bring it, baby. Don't be doing a Christian thing and it be halfway done. Bring it. And the same's true with our kids. If you're going to walk around, my kid's a Christian, and then he does a halfway job when he's doing a job for the neighbor, that's a bad witness for the kid and for our spiritual walk and for our spiritual label, if you will. There's nothing better than that good kind of tired you get. How many of us have mowed the grass, mulched the bushes, trimmed the bushes, raked everything out, and you get to stand out in the front yard because you got to take that one moment there with that glass of iced tea, right? And you call the family out there and see the work you've done, right? And you have that moment because, 20 minutes later, the grass has already grown back, right? But for a moment in time, I'm tired, my back hurts, I got dirt all over me, but the yard looks great. There's a sense of dignity, a sense of completion. Don't rob your child of that. That good kind of tired. When you've worked and accomplished a task and you can look at it and say, well done. There's something spiritual about that. And when you don't connect that with your kid, you've messed something up. The Navy SEALs do this. Navy SEALs emphasize the excellence in making your bed for several reasons. Number one, it's the first thing you do in the morning. and you need to do it with excellence. It's the last thing you're going to see at night when you turn in, and you get to see excellence when you come back in. But what they've discovered in the Navy SEALs is that if you can't do the little things right, well, guess what? You're not going to do the big things right. That sounds kind of like Scripture, doesn't it? If I'm faithful with the little, I'll be given more to manage. It reminds me of when I was cutting grass when I was a little kid. My dad made me start my own business because I wasn't going to have money otherwise. I was 12 years old. He helped me get started, got me some business cards, and I got a bunch of yards to cut there in my neighborhood. And I remember going to old man Carnahan's house, and when I pulled up there with my lawnmower, he was standing there with one of these. Now, I had never seen one of these before. I don't know what the technical name of this is. I called it a dandelion fork, because that's what we used it for in old man Carnahan's yard. But old man Carnahan was a one-man army having a battle with dandelions. He hated dandelions. And whoever was going to cut his grass was not ever going to cut a dandelion. Because when you mow across it, it spreads the seeds everywhere. Now you got 26 dandelions. So anytime you see a dandelion, you have to stop, not just cut the top off of it, but you got to dig it out by the root. You got to do the work right. And so I had to carry this thing in my pocket when I'm at old man Carnahan's house. Probably had holes in all my pockets from the thing sticking through. But I can just see that little redneck kid with this dandelion fork digging those out for $3 every time I cut that old man's yard. And you didn't miss one either, because he'd be out there going, no, you don't get paid, you missed one. You got to get that out, and then I'll give you $3. He was like a taskmaster. And I hate these things to this day. But you know what? There's a great lesson in that, wasn't it? Even at 12 years old, if you're going to do your work, do it right. And if you dig down and do the work really with excellence, later there's not as much work because you did your work well. You took care of the little things. You see, work is not bad. Work is a good thing. It builds character. It's not child abuse. And when you get the opportunity to talk to your child as it being part of their spiritual walk, they start to see it as just even an offering as unto the Lord.